Okay, so welcome to the live stream, everyone. Today we're going to be doing Come Follow Me, Mosiah 7 through 10. Yeah, as per usual, the church website is being broken because it's a Sunday, and apparently every ward clerk and their mother has to be using the church website. So that's going to be its own thing. So that's just been a recent issue. So I've not been able to have my typical highlighted stuff that's easier to read, but this too shall come pass. So yeah, let's just go ahead and start reading from the manual, then we'll go ahead and get into the actual scriptures. So it says, while King Mosiah's people were enjoying continual peace in Zarahemla, their thoughts turned to another group of Nephites, who many years before had left to dwell in the land of Lehi Nephi. Generations had passed, and Mosiah's people had heard nothing from them. So Mosiah asked Ammon to lead a search party to find the Nephites who had left. The search party found that these Nephites, because of iniquity, were left in captivity to the Lamanites, but with the arrival of Ammon and his brethren, suddenly there was hope for deliverance. Sometimes we're like these captive Nephites, suffering because of our sins, wondering how we'll ever find peace again. Sometimes we're like Ammon, feeling prompted to reach out to others, and eventually finding that our efforts have inspired them to lift up their heads and rejoice and put their trust in God. No matter our circumstances, we all need to repent and turn to the Lord with full purpose of heart, with faith that He will deliver us. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic or section here. Ideas for learning at home and at church. So it says Jesus, or the first subtopic here is Jesus Christ has the power to deliver me. Meeting Ammon gave King Limhi hope, and he wanted to pass that hope onto his people. Maybe his words can give you hope too. For context, consider reviewing the situation of Limhi's people in Mosiah 7:20 through 25, and ponder these questions as you read Mosiah 7:14 through 33. What did Limhi say to strengthen his people's faith and hope in Christ? What phrases help you feel hope? What experiences have helped you trust that God can and will deliver you? Next subtopic is I was created after the image of God. In Mosiah chapter 7, verses 26 to 27, Limhi explained some of the truths taught by Abinadi. What truths can you identify in these verses? How do these truths affect the way you see God and yourself? Next is the Lord provides prophets, seers, and revelators to benefit mankind. When Limhi heard Ammon's testimony that the Lord had raised up a seer, Limhi rejoiced exceedingly and gave thanks to God. Why do you think he felt that way? What do you learn about seers from Ammon's words in Mosiah chapter 8, verses 13 through 19? Today we sustain the first presidency and the quorum of the 12 apostles as prophets, seers, and revelators. How have they been of great benefit to you? What have they taught you about Jesus Christ? How can you, like Ammon, speak boldly about the need for prophets, seers, and revelators? For example, what could you share with your family or on social media about truths that have been restored in our day by Joseph Smith and other prophets of the Lord? A review of the following documents might help you think of some of these truths. The blessings of commandments or ordinances, such as the word of wisdom, the law of chastity, or the sealing of families. Last month, we heard from prophets, seers, and revelators in General Conference. What messages inspired you? What will you do differently based on what you've learned? What did the Lord's seers say about things which are to come to pass? So yeah, let's go ahead and move on. Mosiah 9 through 10. I can face my challenges in the strength of the Lord. Zenith admitted that his mistakes had put his people in a difficult situation, but later, during battles against the Lamanites, he helped his people face their challenges with faith in the Lord. As you read Mosiah 9 through 10, look for what Zenith's people did to show their faith. How did God strengthen them? How has he strengthened you? What does it mean to go forth in the strength of the Lord? Next subtopic is Mosiah chapter 10, 11 through 17. Why choices can influence generations. As you read Mosiah 10, 11 through 17, identify how the actions and attitudes of previous generations of Lamanites affected the generations that followed. What does this suggest about how your choices may affect others, for good or bad, including people who are not yet born? Yeah. So yeah, for the next section here, ideas for teaching children, I'll let you guys read that on your own if that applies to you, that you guys are primary or teachers or whatever, or primary children too. You guys can go through that. So let's go ahead and read chapter 7. I'll get the Book of Mormon Made Easier for Teens by David J. Ridges, not sponsored book that we use in these live streams. And yeah, we're on chapter 7, so awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to first start off with a quick word of prayer, and then let's continue. Our dear gracious loving Heavenly Father, we are thankful for today, and we're thankful for all of our many blessings, and we're thankful for Jesus Christ as atonement in our lives, and we're thankful for all thy beautiful tender mercies for us, and we're thankful for these scriptures and for the words of the prophets and apostles of these latter days. And we just ask blessing to be upon all the missionaries out there and all the people currently serving in the church, that they may receive thy help and revelation. And also ask blessing to be upon all those who are serving for their countries across the world, that they can be watched over and protected. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay. So Ammon finds the land of Lehi-Nephi, where Limhi is king. King Limhi's people are in bondage to the Lamanites. Limhi recounts their history. A prophet, Abinadi, had testified that Christ is the God and Father of all things. Those who sow filthiness reap the whirlwind, and those who put their trust in the Lord will be delivered. So yeah, let's go ahead and read what David J. Ridges, a pretty big scholar within the church, has to say about Mosiah 7. And he kind of leaves some comments that I'll go and read about throughout the stream. He says, remember that King Mosiah and his people are living in the land of Zarahemla at this point in the Book of Mormon. By way of background for these next chapters, about 79 years ago from this point in the Book of Mormon chronology, a group of men left the land of Zarahemla in an attempt to return to the land of Lehi-Nephi, where their ancestors had once lived. You may remember that Nephi had to flee from Laman and Lemuel and others who wanted to kill him. Nephi took the righteous people who wanted to follow him, and after traveling for many days, settled in an area that became known as the land of Nephi, or the land of Nephi-Lehi. Over many more years, and after Nephi died, the Lamanites finally infiltrated the land where Nephi and his people settled, and so Mosiah I, who was the king at the time, fled with his righteous people and eventually discovered the land of Zarahemla. After King Mosiah I died, his son Benjamin became king. It was during Benjamin's reign that this group of men set out to return to the land of Nephi. Sadly, that group fought among themselves, and about 50 were killed in the wilderness before returning back to Zarahemla. After returning, they gathered another group and left again to find the land of Lehi-Nephi. That group had never been heard from again. See Omni 1:27-30. At the time that Mosiah II took over as king of the people in Zarahemla. As we begin chapter 7, King Mosiah II is wondering what happened to the men in that group, especially since a number of his people had been constantly asking him to permit a party of men to attempt to discover their fate. So let's go ahead and read that. Now it came to pass that after King Mosiah had continual peace in the space of 3 years, he was desirous to know concerning the people who went up to dwell in the land of Lehi-Nephi, or in the city of Lehi-Nephi. For his people had heard nothing from them from the time that they had left the land of Zarahemla. Therefore they wearied him with their teasings. And it came to pass that King Mosiah granted that 16 of their strong men might go up to the land of Lehi-Nephi to inquire concerning their brethren. And it came to pass that on the morrow they started to go up, having with them one Ammon, he being a strong and mighty man and a descendant of Zarahemla, and he was also their leader. And now they knew not. Okay, so wait. First, we see that Ammon here is not the same as the Ammon we'll meet in Mosiah 27, who is one of the sons of Mosiah II, and who will become a great missionary. So that's just a little thing here. So let's continue. And now they knew not the course they should travel in the wilderness to go up to the land of Lehi-Nephi. Therefore they wandered many days in the wilderness, even 40 days did they wander. Interesting, I wonder who else traveled in the wilderness for 40 days. Towards the beginning of the Book of Mormon, whenever we're going through the introductory pages in the first few chapters, I kind of talk about how the Book of Mormon starts out kind of similar to how the Bible does, and kind of the similarities. It's actually kind of interesting. So there's just kind of another one. So the Israelites, they wandered throughout the Red Sea area for 40 days to get to Israel. So yeah, let's continue. And now they knew not the course that they should travel in the wilderness to go up to the land of Lehi-Nephi. Therefore they wandered many days in the wilderness, even 40 days did they wander. And when they had wandered 40 days, they came to a hill, which is north of the land of Shilom, and there they pitched their tents. And Ammon took 3 of his brethren, and their names were Amaleki, Helam, and Hem. And they went down into the land of Nephi. Perhaps you may just notice sometimes they call this land the land of Lehi-Nephi, and other times it is referred to the land of Nephi. The two terms seem to be interchangeable, and it is likely that they were used interchangeably by the people back then. Next, Ammon and his 3 companions will be arrested immediately, which is no doubt a little bit surprising to them, since these people are also originally from the land of Zarahemla, and Ammon and his companions are not Lamanites. We will soon find out why the king and his guards were so quick to arrest them. And behold, they met the king of the people who were in the land of Nephi and in the land of Shilom, and they were surrounded by the king's guards, and were taken and were bound and were committed to prison. And came pass, when they had been in prison 2 days, they were loosed and brought before the king, and their bands were loosed. And they stood before the king, and were permitted, or rather commanded, that they should answer the questions which he should ask them. And he said unto them, Behold, I am Lemhi, the son of Noah, who was the son of Zeniff, who came up out of the land of Zarahemla to inherit this land, which was the land of their fathers, who was made a king by the voice of the people. Based on the information above in verse 9, we will very briefly summarize what happened to the people who left Zarahemla about 79 years ago. We kind of talked about that before. So yeah, let's just kind of go through this again. They were led by a good man whose name was Zeniff. They were welcomed by the Lamanites, who had long since taken over the land of Nephi, and who secretly plotted to let Zeniff's colony settle and make the land productive, after which they would force these Nephites into bondage and live well off their labors. Under Zeniff's righteous rule, these Nephites in Lamanite territory thrived, and 13 years later, when the Lamanites began to work their plan to make the Ephites their slaves, Zeniff's colony fought them off successfully and maintained their freedom. This freedom was successfully defended and maintained throughout Zeniff's reign, which was probably about 40 years. As Zeniff became old, he turned his kingdom over to his son Noah. Noah was a very wicked king. He did away with very righteous priests and chose wicked men to serve as priests for the people. One of these wicked priests was Alma. So this is kind of just, we'll get to this as we, go throughout the chapters of Mosiah, but you'll see that it kind of, you'll get to this point, and then it's going to jump forward, or it's going to go back in time, recounting all of the history of Zeniff, Alma, Lemhi, and all of that in the next upcoming few chapters. But this is kind of like the segue, so this is just kind of a little summary of what's going to happen coming soon. So the corrupt and evil lifestyle of King Noah and his priests quickly spread to the people, which weakened the colony such that the Lamanites were able to work their plan and put Noah's people into bondage and live off their labors. Noah was eventually burned to death by his own priests, and one of his sons, Lemhi, became the next king. Lemhi inherited Lemhi inherited a kingdom which had to pay 50% of everything they had to the Lamanites. This bondage continued throughout King Lemhi's reign up to the time that Ammon and his companions found him and his people. Thus, the Nephite colony in Lamanite territory had had 3 kings during the 79 years of their existence there, namely Zeneph, Noah, and Limhi. We will now return to Mormon's account of what happened after Ammon's group found Limhi and his people. In verse 10 next, we are given a clue as to why Ammon and his companion were arrested so quickly when they came down out of the hills and approached King Limhi and his guards. The king was very concerned for his own safety. We will find out why as the account continues, and King Limhi gets to ask Ammon and the other prisoners some questions. So let's go ahead and look at verse 10 here. And now I desire to know the cause whereby ye were so bold as to come near the walls of the city, when I myself was with my guards without the gate. And now for this cause have I suffered that ye should be preserved, that I might inquire of you, or else I should have caused that my guards should have put you to death. Ye are permitted to speak. And now when Ammon saw that he was permitted to speak, he went forth and bowed himself before the king. And rising again, he said, O king, I am very thankful before God this day that I am yet alive and permitted to speak, and I will endeavor to speak with boldness. Next, we will see that Ammon is skilled at understanding people and has the ability to make them curious, wanting to know more. For I am assured that if ye had known me, ye would not have suffered that I should have worn these bands. For I am Ammon, I am a descendant of Zarahemla, and I have come up out of the land of Zarahemla to inquire concerning our brethren, whom Zeneph brought up out of that land. And now it came to pass that after King Limhi had heard the words of Ammon, he was exceedingly glad, and said, Now I know of a surety that my brethren who were in the land of Zarahemla are yet alive, and now I will rejoice, and on the morrow I will cause that my people shall rejoice also. Okay, so Limhi is greatly relieved that the people in the land of Zarahemla still exist. He and his people are facing very difficult times themselves, as he will now explain to Ammon in a way perhaps they remind us of the parable of the prodigal son, in which the son did not appreciate how well off he was in the household of his father until he ventured far away and gained a true perspective on the blessings of home. Symbolically, among many other things, this can remind us to seek to return to the blessings of home, meaning the blessings of returning to our Father in heaven, in the celestial kingdom. King Limhi now explains the difficult circumstances he and his people are enduring. His hopes have been raised that Ammon and the people back in Zarahemla will rescue them. So let's go ahead and read. For behold, we are in bondage to the Lamanites, and are taxed with a tax, which is grievous to be borne. And now, behold, our brethren will deliver us out of our bondage, or out of the hands of the Lamanites, and we will be their slaves. For it is better that we be slaves to the Nephites than pay tribute to the king of the Lamanites. And now King Limhi commanded his guards that they should no more bind Ammon nor his brethren, but caused that they should go to the hill which was north of Shalem, and bring their brethren into the city, that thereby they might eat and drink and rest themselves from the labors of their journey. For they had suffered many things, they had suffered hunger, thirst, and fatigue. And now it came to pass that on the morrow that King Limhi sent a proclamation among all his people, that thereby they might gather themselves together to the temple to hear the words which he should speak unto them. We suspect that the temple referred to in verse 17 above was the one that Nephi and his people built in the land of Nephi, as recorded in 2 Nephi chapter 15 verse 16. That temple was patterned after the temple built by Solomon, except according to Nephi, it was not as expensively furnished. Solomon's temple was 30 feet wide and 30 feet high and 90 feet long. That you read about in 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 2. Next, as we listen to King Limhi's address to his people, we will see that he is a very righteous man and has a good knowledge of the scriptures. And since we know that Mormon was inspired to select Limhi's sermon out of many other things available to him, as he made his abridgment to include in what would become our Book of Mormon, we ought to look carefully for messages which apply to us in our day. Let's go ahead and read verse 18 here. And it came to pass that when they had gathered themselves together, that he spake unto them in this wise, saying, O ye my people, lift up your heads and be comforted, For behold, the time is at hand, or is not far distant, when we shall no longer be in subjection to our enemies, notwithstanding our many struggles, which had been in vain. Yet I trust there remaineth an effectual struggle to be made. Okay, so let's go ahead and read what David J. Ridges has to say here. It says, perhaps one of Mormon's reasons for including Limhi's sermon here is that it contains a strong reminder that the only way to gain true freedom is through God, who has the power to redeem us. We will point out some possible symbolism as we continue. If you get good at picking out symbolism that is so often contained in the scriptures, your scripture study will become much more rewarding to you. Let's continue. 19, 20, 21, 22. Okay. Awesome. Therefore, lift up your heads and rejoice, and put your trust in God, in that God who was the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and also the God who brought the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, and caused that they should walk through the Red Sea on dry ground, and fed them with manna, that they might not perish in the wilderness. And many more things did he do for them. And again, the same God has brought that same God has brought our fathers out of the land of Jerusalem, and has kept and preserved his people even until now. And behold, it is because of our iniquities and abominations that he has brought us into bondage. And ye are all witnesses this day that Zeniff, who was made the king over this people, he being overzealous to inherit the land of his fathers, therefore being deceived by the cunning and craftiness of King Laman, who, having entered into a treaty with King Zeniff, and having yielded up into his hands the possessions of a part of the land, or even the city of Lehi-Nephi, and the city of Shilom, and the land round about. And all this he did for the sole purpose of bringing this people into subjection or into bondage. And we at this time do pay tribute to the king of the Lamanites, to the amount of 1/2 of our corn and our barley, and even all our grain of every kind, and 1/2 of the increase of our flocks and our herds, and even 1/2 of all we have or possess. The king of the Lamanites doth exact of us, of our lives. And now first, remember that the various symbolism suggested in previous verses represent not just one set of possibilities. No doubt you can come up with other possible symbolism, but there is much of it in the scriptures. In fact, there is much symbolism in all things, both literal events and as well as spiritual matters. Moses chapter 6 verse 63 confirms this fact, and especially reminds us that there is symbolism of Christ in all things. And you guys can go ahead and read that on your own if you want. So let's go ahead and continue reading. Now is not this grievous to be born, and is not this our affliction great? Now behold, how great reason have we to mourn. Yea, I say unto you, great are the reasons which ye have to mourn. For behold, how many of our brethren have been slain, for their blood has been spilt in vain, and all because of iniquity. Next, Limhi points out to his people how much they got into such a fix, or how they got into such a fix, which is a nice recap for us. For if this people had not fallen into transgression, the Lord would not have suffered that this great evil should come upon them. But behold, they would not hearken unto his words. But there arose contentions among them, even so much that they did shed blood among themselves. And a prophet of the Lord have they slain, yea, a chosen man of God, who told them of their wickedness and abominations, and prophesied of many things which are to come, yea, even the coming of Christ. So Limhi shows great understanding and testimony of Christ as he teaches and testifies to his people. By the way, on average, the Book of Mormon speaks of Christ in one way or another every 1.7 verses. The next verse of Limhi's talk is another example of this wonderful fact. So let's go ahead and read that. And for the record, that 1.7 verses average is a lot higher than the Bible. So that's also something different and cool. Let's continue for verse 27. And because he said unto him, or to them, that Christ was the God, the Father of all things, and said that he should take upon him the image of man, and should be the image after which man was created in the beginning, or in other words, he said that man was created after the image of God, and that God should come down among the children of men, and take upon him flesh and blood, and go forth upon the face of the earth. And now, because he said this, they did put him to death, and many more things did they do, which brought down the wrath of God upon him. Therefore, who wondereth that they are in bondage, and that they are smitten with sore afflictions? For the Lord hath said it, I will not succor my people in the day of their transgression. I will hedge up their ways, that they prosper not, and their doing shall be as a stumbling block before them. Next, Limhi teaches them let me get a drink of water. Next, Limhi teaches what we often refer to as the law of the harvest. And again, he saith, If my people shall sow filthiness, they shall reap the chaff thereof in the whirlwind, aka tornadoes. And the effect thereof is poison. And again he saith, If my people shall sow filthiness, they shall reap the east wind, which bringeth immediate destruction. Immediate destruction. Tornadoes. Okay, I'm getting into the heartland mindset. Anyways. And now, behold, the promise. Actually, let's really quick look at this. What David Drew just has to say here. In the Bible, the east wind is the hot, dry, devastating wind that blows into the Holy Land from the east, having come across the hot desert sands. Sorry, I'm tired, guys. It is known to have dried up crops and ruined them, literally overnight. Thus, the east wind in the scriptures represents devastating and rapid destruction. I call it tornadoes. Given us the whirlwind part. Next, Limhi reminds his people that there is a way out of their painful situation. The same lesson applies to us and all other people. But if ye will turn to the Lord with full purpose of heart, and put your trust in him, and serve him with all diligence of mind, if you do this, he will, according to his own will and pleasure, deliver you out of bondage. So let's go ahead and go to chapter 8. Here. So yeah, let's go ahead and read. Ammon teaches the people of Limhi. He learns the 24 Jaredite plates. Ancient records can be translated by seers. No gift is greater than seership. And it came to pass that after King Limhi had made an end of speaking to his people, for he spake many things unto them, and only a few of them have I written in this book, he told his people all the things concerning their brethren who were in the land of Zarahemla. Okay. And he caused that Ammon should stand up before the multitude, and rehearse unto them all that had happened unto their brethren from the time that Sinneph went up out of the land, even until the time that he himself came up out of the land. And he also rehearsed unto them the last words which King Benjamin had taught them, and explained them to the people of King Limhi, so that they might understand all the words which he spake. And it came to pass that after he had done all this, King Limhi dismissed the multitude, and caused that they should return everyone unto his own house. And it came to pass that he caused that the plates which had contained the record of his people from the time that they had left the land of Zarahemla should be brought before Ammon, that he might read them. It is interesting to observe that both Limhi and Sinneph kept records, whereas there is no mention that wicked King Noah kept records. There seems to be a general pattern that the righteous are record keepers, whereas the wicked are not. In fact, they often destroy the records of the righteous where possible. AKA looked at Alma 14, verse 8. Let's go ahead and look at verse 6. Now as soon as Ammon had read the record, the king inquired of him to know if he could interpret languages, and Ammon told him that he could not. Next, King Limhi will tell Ammon about 24 gold plates and other items that were discovered when he sent several of his people to try to find Zarahemla. He had hoped to get help from the people in the land of Zarahemla, if they still existed, to free his people from bondage in the land of Lehi Nephi. His men got lost and couldn't find Zarahemla, but they did find ruins of the Jaredites, about whom they didn't know at the time. The 24 gold plates that they discovered and brought back to Limhi were written in a language that they could not understand, so Limhi wondered if Ammon could read them. The plates turned out to be the later record of the Jaredites. Much later, Moroni will translate and abridge, aka make a shortened version of these plates, and his abridgment will become the Book of Ether and the Book of Mormon. Next, Limhi will explain to Ammon why he was hoping that Ammon could not understand the language in which the 25 gold plates were written. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue reading here. And the king said unto him, being grieved for the afflictions of my people, I caused that 43 of my people should take a journey into the wilderness, that thereby they might find the land of Zarahemla, that we might appeal unto our brethren to deliver us out of bondage. And they were lost in the wilderness for the space of many days, yet they were diligent and found not the land of Zarahemla, but returned to this land, having traveled in the land among many waters, having discovered a land which was covered with bones of men and of beasts, and was also covered with ruins of buildings of every kind, having also a land which had been peopled with a people who were as numerous as the hosts of Israel, and for a testimony that the things that they had said are true, they have brought 24 plates, which are filled with engravings and are of pure gold. And behold, also they have brought breastplates, which are large, and they are of brass and of copper, and are perfectly sound. And again they have brought swords, the hilts thereof have perished, and the blades thereof were cankered with rust. And there is no one in the land that is able to interpret the language of the engravings that are on the plates. Therefore I say unto thee, canst thou translate? And I say unto thee again, knowest thou of anyone that can translate? For I am desirous that these records should be translated into our language, for perhaps they will give us a knowledge of a remnant of the people who have been destroyed. From whence these records came, or perhaps they will give us a knowledge of this very people who have been destroyed, and I am desirous to know the cause of their destruction. So Ammon's response to King Limhi's question above is very fascinating, and will bring up the subject of seers and what is known as the Urim and Thummim. And now Ammon said unto him, I can surely tell thee, O king, of a man that can translate the records, for he has wherewith that he can look and translate all records that are of ancient date, and it is a gift from God, and all things are called interpreters, and no man can look in them except he be commanded, lest he should look for that he ought not, and he should perish. And whosoever is commanded to look in them, the same is called seer. And behold, the king of the people who were in the land of Zarahemla is the man that is commanded to do these things, and who has this high gift from God. So let's consider the Urim and Thummim here. As mentioned by Ammon, King Mosiah II has one. Then we will discuss the topic of seers, which I won't really get that deep into. But yeah, it basically just goes into the history of the Book of Mormon and the seer stones, which is a topic for a different day. And I don't really have time to go that deep into it. So now we will turn briefly into the topic of seers. We are blessed to have prophets, seers, and revelators today in the Quorum of the 12 and First Presidency. And we will pay special attention to some items that Ammon taught Limhi in the next verses. In so doing, we can learn more about seers. I have a lot of yawns coming, guys. let's go ahead and read. And the king said that a seer is greater than a prophet. And Ammon said that a seer is a revelator and a prophet also, and a gift which is greater can no man have, except he should possess the power of God, which no man can. Yet a man may have great power given him from God. So pay special attention to verse 17 next, to be reminded of what our seers do today. They do this for us in General Conference, as well as in countless other settings as they fulfill their prophetic callings. They see dangers in our culture's politics, or political trends, philosophies, media, etc. On the other hand, they see great opportunities for spiritual growth, joy, and happiness and point them out to us. Okay, so let's go ahead and read. But a seer can know of the things which are past, and also of things which are to come. By them shall all things be revealed, or rather shall secret things be made manifest, and hidden things shall come to light. And things which are not known shall be made known by them, and also things shall be made known by them, but which otherwise cannot be known. So, let's continue reading here. Thus God has provided a means that man, through faith, might work mighty miracles. Therefore he becometh a great benefit to his fellow beings. So, next Mormon records Limhi's powerful closing testimony for us to read and to feel. And now when Ammon had made an end of speaking these words, the king rejoiced exceedingly and gave thanks to God, saying, Doubtless a great mystery is contained within these plates, and these interpreters were doubtless prepared for the purpose of unfolding all such mysteries to the children of men. Oh, how marvelous are the works of the Lord, and how long doth he suffer with his people? Yea, and how blind and impenetrable are the understandings of the children of men. For they will not seek wisdom, neither do they desire that she should rule over them. Limhi finishes his testimony by pointing out how foolish people are to run away from God and into certain destruction. Yea, they are as wild flock which fleeth from the shepherd, and scattereth and are driven, and are devoured by the beasts of the forest. So, let's go on. So, this is a flashback. Okay, really important right here. So, comprising chapters 9 through 22, an account of his people, aka Zeniff, from the time they left the land of Zarahemla, until the time they were delivered out of the hands of the Lamanites. So let's go ahead and get into that. We basically already have gone through that introduction, so let's go ahead and get started with this chapter. I, Zeniff, having been taught in all the language of the Nephites, and having had a knowledge of the land of Nephi, or of the land of our fathers' first inheritance, and having been sent as a spy among the Lamanites, that I might spy out their forces, that our army might come upon them and destroy them. But when I saw that which was good among them, I was desirous that they should not be destroyed. Therefore I contended with my brethren in the wilderness, for I would that our ruler should make a treaty with them. For he being okay, let's see. Speech. Start. Austere. So, but he being an austere and a bloodthirsty man commanded that I should be slain. But I was rescued by the shedding of much blood. For father fought against father, and brother against brother, until the greater number of our army was destroyed in the wilderness, and we returned, those of us that were spared, to the land of Zarahemla, to relate that tale to their wives and their children. And yet I, being overzealous to inherit the land of our fathers, collected as many as were desirous to go up to possess the land, and started again on our journey into the wilderness to go up to the land but we were smitten with famine and sore afflictions, for we were slow to remember the Lord our God. Nevertheless, after many days wandering in the wilderness, we pitched our tents in the place where our brethren were slain, which was near the land of our fathers. And it came to pass that I went again with 4 of my men into the city and unto the king, that I might know of the disposition of the king, that I might know if I might go in with my people and possess the land in peace. We see immediately that the king of the Lamanites was cunning, and he could recognize the opportunity when he saw it. And I went in unto the king, and he covenanted with me that I might possess the land of Lehi-Nephi and the land of Shillim. And he also commanded that his people should depart out of the land, and I and my people went into the land that we might possess it. And verse 8, we see typical members of the church who are industrious, hardworking people who turn ruins into a prosperous civilization. This approach to living is typical of righteous people. And we began to build buildings and to repair the walls of the city, yea, even the walls of the city of Lehi-Nephi and the city of Shillim. It is obvious from verse 8 above that Nephi and his people once lived in this area. So let's continue on, and we began to till the ground, yea, even with all manner of seeds, with seeds of corn, of wheat, and of barley, and with maize, and with sheum, and with seeds of all manner of fruits, and we did begin to multiply and prosper in the land. Next, as he looks back in time, Zena points out the plot and the cunning heart of King Laman and his people. Also, it is interesting to note in passing that just as the Nephites named their kings after Nephi, so also the Lamanites named their kings after Laman. See verse 10 next. And it was cunning after the craftiness of King Laman to bring my people into bondage, that he yielded up the land that we might possess it. Therefore, sorry, for some reason whenever I scroll up, sometimes it scrolls right back down. It's weird. Possess it, okay. Therefore, it came past that after we had dwelt in the land for the space of 12 years, that King Laman began to grow uneasy, lest by any means my people should wax strong in the land, and that they could not overpower them and bring them into bondage. Now they were a lazy and idolatrous people. Therefore they were desirous to bring us into bondage, that they might glut themselves with the labors of our hands. Yea, that they might feast themselves upon the flocks of our fields. And therefore it came to pass that King Laman began to stir up his people, that they should contend with my people. Therefore there began to be wars and contentions in the land. For in the 30th year of my reign in the land of Nephi, way on the south of the land of Shillim, when my people were watering and feeding their flocks and tilling their lands, a numerous host of Lamanites came upon them and began to slay them, and to take off their flocks and the corn of their fields. So let's go ahead and continue. Yea, and it came to pass that they fled, all that were not overtaken, and even unto the city of Nephi, and did call upon me for protection. And it came to pass that I did arm with them with bows, and with arrows, with swords, with scimitars, and with clubs, and with slings, and with all manner of weapons which we could invent. And I and my people did go forth against the Lamanites to battle. Theirs was a righteous cause, therefore they could properly ask God for help in defeating their enemies. Healing righteously. Okay, anyways. Yea, in the strength of the Lord did we go forth to battle against the Lamanites, for I and my people did cry mightily to the Lord that he would deliver us out of the hands of our enemies, for we were awakened to remembrance of the deliverance of our fathers. So in verse 17 above, there is an important message that remembering past blessings from God is the key to having faith for current needs and requests to him. So let's continue to read. And God did hear our cries and did answer our prayers, and we did go forth in his might. Yea, we did go forth against the Lamanites, and in one day and a night we did slay 3,043. We did slay them even until we had driven them out of our land. And I myself with mine own eyes did help to bury their dead. And behold, to our great sorrow and lamentation, 279 of our brethren were slain. Perhaps one of the reasons Mormon chose to preserve the part of Zeno's record given in verses 18 and 19 above is to remind us and to teach us that faithful saints, with the help of the Lord, can triumph over great odds and opposition, especially in terms of spiritual dangers. So let's move on to chapter 10. So this chapter covers about 27 years from approximately 187 BC to 160 BC. One of the major messages here will be the warning that the further people stray from God, the more wild, vicious, and bloodthirsty they become. In fact, you may have noticed even now in our day that quite often the farther people get from the teachings and standards of the gospel, the more bizarre and wild their clothing, hairstyles, tattoos, body piercings, and general appearance become. One of the sad things that happens as a result of the Lamanites attacking these Nephite colonists is that now Zeniff and his people have to spend a lot of their time and resources preparing to defend themselves against future attacks. This is quite similar to our situation in our country today. So let's go ahead and read verse 1. And it came to pass that we began to establish the kingdom, and we began to possess the land in peace. And I caused that there should be weapons of war made of every kind, that thereby I might have weapons for my people against the time that the Nephites should come up again against my people. There was much debate in our world as to whether it was right to stockpile weapons of war since times of peace. Since the Book of Mormon was written for our day, an important message in verse 1 above is that it is both permissible and wise for the righteous, when necessary, to maintain armies and manufacture and store up weapons of defense in times of peace. Let's go ahead and read that. Let's go ahead and read this. So, and I set guards round about the land, that Lamanites might not come upon us again unawares and destroy us. And thus I did guard my people and my flocks, and keep them from falling into the hands of our enemies. And it came to pass that we did inherit the land of our fathers for many years, yea, for the space of 22 years. And I did cause that the men should till the ground, and raise all manner of grain, and all manner of fruit of every kind. And I did cause that the women should spin and toil and work all manner of fine linen, yea, and cloth of every kind, that we may clothe our nakedness. And thus we did prosper in the land. Thus we did have continual peace in the land for the space of 22 years. The above verses again remind us that righteous people tend to work hard and be productive. While we should not judge others unrighteously, we should be sure that the principle of self-reliance as taught by our church leaders is used in our own lives. Let's go ahead and continue reading here. And it came to pass that King Laman died, and his son began to reign in his stead. And he began to stir his people up in rebellion against my people. Therefore they began to prepare for war, and come up to battle against my people. And I had sent my spies round about the land Shilom, that I might discover their preparations, that I might guard against them, that they might not come upon my people and destroy them. And it came to pass that they came upon them north of the land of Shilom, with their numerous hosts, men armed with bows, and with arrows, and with swords, and with smitters, and with stones, and with slings, and they had their heads shaved, that they were naked, and they were girded with a leathern girdle about their loins. So, verse 8 above is certainly a reminder that wild appearance and fashions go hand in hand with personal and cultural distance from God. Let's continue. Verse 9, and it came to pass that I caused that the women and children of my people should be hid in the wilderness, and I also caused that all my old men could bear arms, and also my young men that were able to bear arms should gather themselves together to go to battle against the Lamanites. And I did place them in their ranks, every man according to his age. And it came to pass that we did go up to battle against the Lamanites, and I, in my old age, did go up to battle against the Lamanites. And it came to pass that we did go up in the strength of the Lord to battle. Which is in the strength of the Lord. That's a pretty common theme that we see here. Now the Lamanites knew nothing concerning the Lord, nor the strength of the Lord. Therefore they depended upon their own strength. Yet they were a strong people as to the strength of men. Next, Enough points out how damaging false and evil traditions can be as they are handed down from generation to generation. We see much of this in our world today. As ethnic war and personal hatreds are passed down from one generation to another, perhaps this is one of Satan's most successful tools of destruction. Also, there is another significant tactic of the devil that is pointed out in the next verses. It is perhaps a bit more subtle or sneaky than outright false traditions, but is very destructive to societies and individuals alike. It is what we might call the victim syndrome. We have, in a very real sense, become a nation of victims. This attitude has crippling effect on people. They become to believe that society owes them. Thus, Satan, in a subtle way, destroys their productivity and work ethic and replaces it with bitterness and self-pity and even hatred of those who are productive. So let's go ahead and read verse 12. And they were a wild, ferocious, and bloodthirsty people, believing in the tradition of their fathers, which is this, believing that they were driven out of the land of Jerusalem because of the iniquities of their fathers, and they were wronged in the wilderness by their brethren, and they were also wronged while crossing the sea. And again, that they were wronged while in the land of their first inheritance, that they had crossed the sea, and all this because that Nephi was more faithful in keeping the commandments of the Lord. Therefore he was favored of the Lord, for the Lord heard his prayers and answered them, and he took the lead of their journey in the wilderness. And his brethren were wroth with him, because they understood not the dealings of the Lord. They were also wroth with him upon the waters, because they hardened their hearts against the Lord. It is Satan's way to have us blame others for our own unrighteous behavior. And I think that's a pretty common theme. Let's continue reading. And again, they were wroth with him when they said arrived. I think it's another water break. That's a loud sound. Okay, let's start again from verse 15. And again they were wroth with him when they had arrived in the land of promise, because they had said that he had taken the ruling of the people out of their hands, and they sought to kill him. And again they were wroth with him, because he departed into the wilderness, as the Lord had commanded him. And they took records which were engraven on the plates of brass, for they said that he robbed them. And they have taught their children that they should hate them, that they should plunder and murder them, and rob them, and do all they could to destroy them. Therefore, they have an eternal hatred towards the children of Nephi. You may have noticed something else in verses 12 to 17 above, which you see a lot in our world today: the rewriting of history to satisfy personal agendas. No wonder Mormon included these things in the Book of Mormon. We need to be alerted to what is going on all around us under the sponsorship of the devil. Now back to Zeneph and his confession that he was deceived by the king Laman. We probably should not be too critical of him for this, since such things happen to us too. Let's go ahead and read that. And for this cause has King Laman by his cunning and lying craftiness and his fair promises deceived me, that I have brought this my people up into this land, that they may destroy them. Yea, we have suffered these many years in the land. Now I, Zeneph, having told all these things unto my people concerning the Lamanites, I did stimulate them to go to battle with their might, putting their trust in the Lord. Therefore we did contend with them face to face, and came to pass that we did drive them again out of our land, and we slew them with a great slaughter, even so many that we did not number them. And came to pass that we returned again to our own land, and my people again began to tend their flocks and to till their ground. And now, being old, did confer the kingdom upon one of my sons. Therefore, I say no more, and may the Lord bless my people. Amen. Okay, so there we have it. Mosiah 7 through 10. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.